Hey there, and I'm a keynote speaker and writer. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, my weekly show where I bring good vibes to DEI. That is good vibes to diversity, equity, and inclusion with a little dash of corporate social responsibility. What I've found is there are lots of news stories about what's going wrong in the world and lots of negative data, but there are also a lot of things going right. That's what I like to focus on. I search for stories that we can be inspired by and learn from. My hope is to inspire you to experiment with some of these actions and policies to help you build a more inclusive world. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Deidra Green, she, her, Director of DEI at European Wax Center. This week, our conversation is about a new dub of the Avengers movie, Ben and Jerry's new ad campaign, trans representation at the Olympics, and more. Let's get started. Welcome to the show, Deidra.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I love everything that you're doing with bringing good vibes to DE&I. I know for DE&I practitioners like myself, we need all the good vibes we can get. So I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, let's actually get into the work that you're doing. You're working on the inside. I'm an external consultant and speaker. So I would love for you to sort of brag. What are some of the cool things you get to work on within European Wax Center?
Wow. At EWC, we're doing a lot of cool initiatives to just try to make sure that we're fostering a more inclusive environment in our center. So this year, one of the things that we just recently launched, actually just 2 weeks ago, that is very exciting, is our disability inclusion in the center training.
Oh,
So I know, being a former wax specialist, we have people who come into the center with disabilities, a range of different disabilities. And so we wanted to take our experience just from compliant to a more welcoming experience for those in the disability community. So we took about a year to partner with a consultant and look at our, in-center practices and see really where that low-hanging fruit was, to be able to just, utilize the resources that we already have to create a more inclusive experience, and then say to ourselves, hey, what do we need to add? So
mm,
the one of the more exciting things that we've added is an accessibility accommodations form to our booking flow,
mm,
so that we can know ahead of time if a guest is coming in with a disability, but not really what their disability is, but how do we accommodate it so that they have the most the best experience that they can have in our center. So that's really exciting, and one of the latest things that we've been working on. So more to come on that.
I love that. Do you mind sharing like what a sample question is on the form?
Sure. One of the questions that we might ask is, would you like your provider to wear a mask? That's something that's simple, easy for us to accommodate. We ask if they're using, a mobility aid. If they need additional time for their reservation, we're doing services in which people might need time to get undressed, depending on the service that they're getting. So, we have a list of accommodations that you can choose from, so that you don't even have to, you don't have to guess what we're able to do. And so I like that feature as well, because it's something that we know all the centers across the United States can accommodate. I think that makes it easier for the guests to know what to expect, but also easier for the associates working in the center to know how they should prepare for their reservations. So those are some of the things that we've added.
I love that. And I love that you sort of started with the low hanging fruit because
Hmm.
there are a lot of things that you can do easily that are going to make a big difference. And simply
Hmm.
by having that form, it means that people with disabilities don't have to come out. The burden
Right,
is not on
exactly.
them to
Right,
disclose, right?
exactly.
And I think it's just you're setting yourself up for a much more proactive customer
Hmm.
service experience.
Hmm.
And great customer service is priceless. The loyalty
Yeah,
there is priceless. So it's just a
absolutely.
win-win for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the awareness is one of the big things that we focus on. So whenever we try to launch a training, we don't just say, here now, push button A, push button B. We also say why this is important. So understanding, some of the things that people in the disability community might go through, sharing that with our associates and saying, here's what we can do to make sure that that's not happening in our center. So that education piece is something that I think is really important to add into the training, not just, what to do, but why you're doing it. I think that makes for a more authentic experience as well.
Well, and people are more likely to actually change their behavior if they
Mhm.
understand the why behind it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a neuroscience thing. We need
Yeah.
to feel the need, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Otherwise,
Yes.
we're just going to stick with what's easy, what's been done
Yeah.
before,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Hmm.
I love that. Well, I got myself all fired up last week when I was reading about SHRM's removal of equity, SHRM, Society of Human Resource Management,
Yeah.
removal of equity from their messaging and encouraging their member organizations to do the same and focus instead on inclusion first and then diversity. And, sometimes I feel like it's just an onslaught of negative news, Deidre. And
Mhm.
so I'm wondering what gives you hope? What keeps you going in this work, particularly that you are on the inside? And so sometimes you might feel, I don't know, I don't want to put words in your
Mhm.
mouth. So you,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, no, no. I completely understand. I mean, one of the things that gives me hope is that my story is unique, and I hope it's not too unique, but it's unique in that I have, amazing support from my executive leadership team, on the inside for these initiatives. I have a budget to be able to roll things out and, make we're keeping our centers on top of the materials that we have. I mean, and putting dollars behind making sure that we're partnering with the best organizations to make sure that we're not guessing about anything that we're implementing in our center. So it gives me hope on a daily basis that I know a lot of other DEI protection practitioners don't have. They may not have the support from their leadership teams, or they
Mhm.
may not have a budget. They may not be able to roll things out. But at EWC, I'm grateful to be able to say that I do have those things. So that gives me a lot of hope. And then, just partnering with all the centers that we have, we're a franchise, and that means a lot of different owners, a lot of different opinions, experiences, and everything like that. But we have a really great culture at EWC. It's one of the things that I think that we're known for. So that gives me hope that I'm a part of an organization who lives by their values and is doing the right thing.
That is a beautiful thing. And I am so happy for you that that is your
Yes, thank you.
experience.
Thank you.
That's great. Well, in this week's Five Things newsletter, I wrote about sort of the stress and all of the pressure that's going on right now, the uncertainty that people are feeling. So much
Mhm,
is out of our control right now. Um, the anti DEI stuff, the election stuff. I mean, it can be a lot. And so
mhm,
and I've been an entrepreneur for 20 years. So I have been on the roller coaster ride of business ownership, and I've had to develop some tools so I
mhm,
can regulate myself in times of stress. So I shared a few tools in my newsletter. I'll share them with you folks now. Just a few when I'm like have a very acute stress.
mhm,
One of the things I do sometimes is grounding work. So that might mean that I step outside and I pull a few weeds in my garden in between meetings, or I put my bare feet on the ground. So just feeling more sort of grounded and in touch with the earth just helps me kind of
mhm.
snap back into my breath. Also,
Yep.
just a little bit of breath work. I use the mindfulness app on obviously meditation is great, but for a quick fix, I'll just do some breath work through the mindfulness app on my Apple Watch. And then
Mhm,
finally, there's a pressure point right here between the pointer finger and the thumb, and that webbing.
mhm.
I pinch
I
that.
use that for headaches.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
an
when I get a
amazing
headache.
release. These quick fixes, I was
Yes.
wondering if you have any that you use.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think so I like riding my Peloton, but most recently what I've been doing is going for walks, like just being outside, like in nature, like taking in, the world as it is and at that present moment. I think helps a lot. I didn't honestly really didn't know why I loved, just taking the walk or why that helped to just calm me down. But I recently read something that because when you're walking, your eyes are moving back and forth and darting back and forth, and that can help to reset your nervous system.
Hmm.
So that kind of like brings me down a little bit. If, I'm so inclined, I might listen to a positive podcast or a
Mm.
positive book, so that you're not constantly in doom and gloom mode and constantly taking in all the news and whatnot. It's like it's very important, what you feed your mind on a regular basis. And so I think that, keeping those positive podcasts and books queued up. I have any number of them ready to go at any time. Just helps me, stay grounded and say, there are other messages that I can take in the world right now.
That's right. That's great. Well, hopefully you
Mhm.
will add this podcast to your queue
Yes, of
for
course, of
pick
course.
me up. All right. Well, let's get into this week's good vibes. The first story. I love this first story. The movie, the Avengers movie, is
Mhm.
being dubbed in the Lakota language, now available on Disney Plus. So this groundbreaking project actually brings the core cast back together and is aiming to revive a language that was once forced underground due to threats of punishment. This initiative is part of the Lakota Language Reclamation Project, and it seeks to reintroduce a language which secretly survived into homes. So there were 62 Lakota speakers involved in this project. How great is this?
I think it's amazing. And I think, a lot of people who may not be immersed in this work might look at that and might be like, okay, like big deal. They've dubbed a movie in another language, but this is truly, truly huge. I mean, the fact that this language was almost lost because it was, basically criminalized to an extent, bringing it back and then bringing it back with the original actors, like having them, actually learn more about it and learn, be able to do the language and bringing in, all the experts. I just think it really sends the message of how important inclusivity is. Um, and it's just, the intimacy of watching a movie with your family in, your native language is great. How many people love to just have movie night with their families? Why?
Mhm.
Because it bonds you across different, generations, different viewpoints. We're all here sitting here taking in this one piece of media at a time. So for that moment, we're all connected. So I think, when we think about media and movies and music and whatnot, that's like, this is really important. I'm really excited to read about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the second story comes from Ben and Jerry's, which has launched its first ad campaign in years called
Mhm.
Progress Comes in Many Flavors. This urges consumers to become activists on various social issues, from fighting food deserts to advocating for gun reform. So Ben
Mhm.
and Jerry's is stepping up and other brands are backing off, and I love it.
Yeah. 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 I love what the best thing that I love about their campaign is that it's giving you these ideas of these little things that you can do to show your support. I think a lot of times, we can feel pressure that we have to do everything and we have to, fight for everything, or, if you're not in the streets doing something, protesting or anything like that, there's nothing that you can do and any of your efforts won't be added to the greater sum of efforts. But there are lots of little ways that you can be an activist in your own right. And I love, promoting and shining a light on some of those things.
Absolutely. Ben and Jerry's. All right.
Mhm.
Making me hungry. Okay. Third, third story this week. More organizations are compensating their employee resource group leaders. Few examples that came in from this story. So, Autodesk is giving their ERG leaders $10,000 annually, and that has led to a 50% increase in membership and higher employee engagement. Allstate is integrating ERG leadership into daily work, which is resulting in 37% lower turnover and 25% higher promotion rates.
Mhm.
Micron is giving their ERG leaders stock units. I mean, I love that these are organizations that are saying, no, we're going. We know these people have to split their time. In many cases,
Yep.
it's purely voluntary.
Mhm. Yep.
This is so important.
Yeah, and it's seen a lot of times as like soft skills or something that doesn't really make an impact on the organization or drive the business. But these things, I mean, the metrics you just rattled off let us know that there is an impact. When your people are happy and they feel purpose and, in their work, and they're able to tie that back to their actual work that affords them a living. There's nothing better than that. And to actually be able to be compensated for it legitimizes the work and makes you feel really good. So I love that story too.
Absolutely. And I hope that
Mhm.
everyone listening and watching decides
Yeah.
to do something similar or at least experiment with it. The
Yeah.
fourth story this week, which is great for Disability Pride Month, which is this month. This story comes from Minnesota, which has a lot of initiatives to be more inclusive at public events. For example, the Twin Cities Pride Festival offered sensory support teams and quiet zones for people with sensory sensitivities. Other events included sensory friendly spaces, noise canceling, earmuffs at various fairs, and all of these things across Minnesota. And I think that everyone has the right to experience joy.
Absolutely. This one hit home for me a little bit because my nephew has autism. And there was a point that was brought up in the article about the split family, enjoyment that has to happen. It's like, oh, well, okay, we want to do this, but can we take AJ? How is he going to fare in that environment?
Yeah.
It's and you are always wanting to be on his side, but at the same time you're trying to think about the experience for other people as well, and like how is that going to go? Is it going to create more stress for him? So not having to choose between going to an event or not going to it because you might have one member of your party that requires different needs, is going to change a lot for a lot of families, and normalize the fact that there are people in the world that need to experience an event differently than others, and just make it the norm so that they can enjoy events with their families as well. They deserve that as much as anyone else.
I agree, and I love the suggestion to make it the norm, and I
Mhm.
love it when it's publicized in advance, so people know what to
Mhm.
expect, they know that they can plan, they know that they don't have
Yes.
to split their party or their family, and so it's just really, it's beautiful for me to just see how much more of this is coming about, and,
Mhm.
I like I said, I think everyone should have the experience of joy and pride, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, the last story this week, excuse me. The last story this week is about Nikki Hiltz, a trans non-binary runner who uses they them pronouns, are headed to the Olympics. They are the champion in the 1500-meter race. They made the team in a personal best performance in the second fastest run by an American ever. So great representation for Nikki at the upcoming Olympics. This is amazing.
Yeah, I love this. I think, it's one of those topics that has, people have a lot of strong opinions on both sides. And I think there's been a lot of, different organizations that have come up with different ways to be able to be more inclusive in this space. But I do believe that, there's more that can be done for, different, I think in different ways, as far as, um I had the notes that I had written down that was like, it went right out of my head. There are so many advantages and disadvantages in sports across the board that I think just because it's difficult to maybe find a different solution or to change the system or to find
Mhm.
different things to do doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. And so stories like this, again, things become more normalized. It's trending in the right direction. So these are exciting stories to bring about.
Awesome. I agree. I absolutely agree. And I love anything that's sort of breaking ground. I mean, someone has to
Yes.
go first, and it takes a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And, I get
Yeah.
goosebumps even just thinking about the courage that it takes to
Yeah.
live authentically and to just fight for it.
Yes. You have to start somewhere.
Absolutely. So this week's call to action is a new LinkedIn learning course by Lily Zhang. Their course is called A Playbook to Achieve Equity Anywhere. I'll put that the in the show notes. But we also have a question here on LinkedIn from George Patterson, Deirdre. And the question is, can you share some of your go-to books? Do you have any book recommendations besides, of course,
Oh
inclusive,
gosh.
which is my book?
Let me check out my app here. One of the most recent books that I've read that I really really loved was The Courage to Be Disliked.
Mm,
I think that that is, one of the things when I talked about, shoring yourself up, to have conversations in this space and to just be an advocate in this space. There was a title that stood out to me, because not everybody is going to like you. And I mean, that's true for everything that you do. So, how you position that in your mind and how you work through those feelings, I think, anything that you can use, any tools that you can get from that regard is really
mm,
important. Let me see. I just recently read The Life Brief by Bonnie Wan. It actually was a topic in our media club that we have at EWC, and it's a playbook for no regrets living, and it's about like drilling down on what it is that you really want out of your life. I think that was an awesome book. I mean, they run the gamut. I can sit here all day and talk about the books that I read, but I would definitely recommend putting like connecting on Goodreads, because that way you can look at all the books and see what I want to read, what's coming up next. So I like that app a lot.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deidre. How can folks get in touch with you?
On LinkedIn, I think is probably the best way to reach me. I mean, it would mean a lot to me that if you've never been to, a European wax center before, booking that reservation and seeing what it's like to actually have, be in an inclusive environment in the beauty industry and come and, be one of our guests. We'd love to have you. Um, I mentioned the disability inclusion training that we have, but we also have gender diversity basics training for our associates as well. So, we welcome everyone into our centers, and you can book your reservation at waxcenter.com. So,
That's awesome. Thank you so much,
yep,
Deidre. You have been a
yep.
real treat to have on today's show. So thank you so much. And folks, if you don't already get the Five Things newsletter, you can subscribe at fivethingsdei.com. Have a great week.
Thank you so much. Bye bye.